Undeniable 17. 10 steps to expose your professor's indoctrination. Welcome back from break, Spartans. I hope it's been a great break. Great, ability to be free off campus and be able to think and, free marketplace of ideals outside of campus. Now that we're back, the indoctrination will be starting back up. And so this episode will help you expose it and how you can call it your professors. 10 steps right ahead. This is Undeniable with Sir Kelly. Here I highlight news and more watchers reported and things that weren't reported, and further information on indoctrination and leftist bias at Michigan State University. So today will be unlike any other Undeniable. It's going to be more of a descriptive and prescriptive video. And yes, anyone wondering, professor, faculty, or student, I fully encourage legal, respectful, and outright exposure of professor indoctrination on campus. Fully support that. If you want help, I hope this can help, and if you need more help, I'd be happy to help. But know that, and I hope there's obviously a great group of Morning Watch contributors that do expose leftist bias, obviously. Several articles, obviously, weekly. Check out the website. And if you are interested in becoming a contributor and learning more about this and how you can play a huge role on your campus, definitely reach out. We are looking for more contributors, always to grow the team and grow the amount of stuff we can report. Greater reach. So the setup to this video, there'll be 3 parts. So first, the goals, then the legal parameters, and then the steps, the individual steps to it. So obviously first, the goals. We don't just want to go in there just aimlessly. We want to have a direction. Obviously you can have your own goals, but generally this is probably a good goal. The goal is either to extract information from the class, or which you'd publicize, or to challenge your professor and classmates, a classroom, with an open discussion. So you're either going in there to take information out, get that out to the broader public, or you're just trying to make the class space free from indoctrination, open discussion. You see something coming up, how can we take professor's claim about this blatant claim of socialism and turn it into, a discussion on the horrors of socialism, its aspirations and how they fail to, meet with human nature and actual practicality and how they've, stuff like that. Second, legal parameters. Obviously, since our founding of this nation, there have been more laws and more regulation placed on free expression, free speech, on this campus. So, the Morning Watch is getting a statement from the Michigan Freedom Fund, the attorney there, just around, the recording laws, Michigan's other universities, Michigan State Universities, and what a student can actually do, according to Michigan law and federal law. So quick breakdown. So Michigan is technically a 2-party consent state, meaning that, by that definition, both parties in the room would have to agree to being recorded. But, however, there's been 2 court cases, Lewis versus LeGros and Sullivan versus Gray in Michigan, which have deemed that that if you're in the conversation, that you cannot be deemed eavesdropping. So they've selected that 2-party thing for, that would be in void or for in terms of eavesdropping. So obviously if it's a non-private meeting, or it's obviously a lecture at university, you can record it. So all public university classes, non-private meetings, which defined by Michigan law and federal law, as long as it's public, access way, going through a college academic building or what have you, as long as the door is open. Now, that doesn't have to mean that, the whole door is open, you can see everything that's going on, but technically, as long as there's a gap between where the door is shut and the door. And obviously if there's a meeting that's going on in a public area, and it's just in an off room or something, you're going through, I don't know, let's say Brody, or you're going through Wells, and the door is slightly open, by all means, you can tend to record that. Obviously, you want to be cautious because, again, you know, this can get murky. And then, so I've like on off that point, you can't guarantee the university's respect for the press. So even though I'm saying like 10 with the doors open, public access, you know, by Michigan law, this stuff, they still might try to come after, you know, you or students. Morning Watch is obviously, you know, has been recording a lot of stuff to back our articles, you know, if people want to know more, or in the videos we post, obviously there's audio through there. And obviously every event we go to is recorded, that we record. So we've been doing it for a while. We haven't gotten in trouble yet. We are, you know, safe in terms of, you know, legally and whatnot, but who knows? So just can't guarantee that university will respect your right to, you know, free press and, you know, stuff like that. And also, so the university will claim, so there's no general university policy except for they leave it to discretion of professors, and they might claim, you know, intellectual property. You can't record this class because it's my intellectual property, and by you recording it, you know, stealing it, I don't want you to share that. However, two things. Just recording something, it does not mean you're stealing their intellectual property, which it's a whole other thing. If they're indoctrinating you, there's probably not much intellectual property going on, or at least good intellectual property. But if you record it, you know, Morning Watch records, you know, has recorded a dozen, probably a dozen, definitely a dozen professors. But we have not, you know, utilized that for, say, you know, in gains of, you know, assignments, or, you know, or selling it to another university or another student to learn or whatnot. So you can't be charged with stealing intellectual property unless you actually use it and sell as intellectual property. So innocent until proven guilty, so they can't say, you know, you can't record this because it's my intellectual property. No, that's not how it goes. So know that. So third, so actually the you know, tips for the, you know, for exposing indoctrination. So now we know the goals and the rules, we can move into this because we do want to make sure we know the rules and the goals. Obviously you can have a slightly different goal or you know, but make sure we do want to have a basis there. So first there'll be 5 tips on how to extract information, like that related to the first goal, one of the first goals. And then another 5 tips to how to, you know, promote an open discussion, which relates to the second part of the goal. Obviously, you can have some overlap, but generally I'm going to try to keep them separate. So for the first part, extraction. And remember, this is, you know, you're going in to get information and publicizing it. So that means the first tip is exposing content means you're quiet and not inserting yourself. So, you know, we've all seen the videos online, and some are pretty bad. But the last thing you want to do is, you know, be sitting in class, and, you know, as you start, your professor just, you know, is talking about, oh, well, you know, Trump and his authoritarian regime, you know, Hitler, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, this is going to be great. Last thing you want to do is say, oh my gosh, let me record him. And just whip out your phone and, you know, you're just going at it and you're just staring at him. Maybe you're whispering to your friend or just commenting like, oh my gosh, we're going to get this professor. No. Absolutely not. That is not how you do it. First of all, one, might decrease the quality of the recording. The professor sees you record and they might be like, oh crap, I don't want my face all over YouTube. So they might, you know, remove from the conversation. And then also it's not respectful, you know, you're still in a classroom space, you know, if it's still stuff you don't want to hear, don't like, you know, last you want to do is be disrespectful. So again, quiet, not inserting yourself, which also means, you know, if there's the professor saying something, trying to edge them on, you know, it's getting more radical or saying more radical things. And if you're trying to, especially if you're trying to share that to show that, like, oh, this professor's indoctrinating, or you're trying to, you know, if you were to use this in a story or report it to an outlet, it's a little ethically challenging because you're inserting yourself in the story there. Second tip is, so audio takes very little space on the phone. You don't need much storage, which is great. So if there's a potential area that you see or you know about, let's say you see a flyer, you know, it's feminism 101, freedom for all of us, you know, liberation from the patriarchy, you know, how to dismantle, you know, white male control in the Trump era. See a flyer like that might have some indoctrination or liberal bias in it, you know. Obviously, you don't know for sure yet, but So instead of going to the event, sitting down and then you're pointing your phone and you're like, oh gosh, maybe, when's he gonna say something? I'll just wait. Walk in recording. It's gonna take very little space. Maybe if you start the recording at 7 p.m. and you hear stuff going on at 7:10, write down 10 minutes and then the mark approximately your video. Just so walk in recording, that way you're calm, collected. Obviously, don't be taking out your phone all the time and being very obvious you're recording. They can't stop you. You can record in that area, public university. That's a tip. Tip 3, use visual for visual and audio for audio. So pretty obvious and redundant, but you don't need to, videotape a conference where there's just a speaker and they're talking about, how bad America is and all that stuff. That is gonna use storage on your phone, and that's something where, there's not much gain from that. Obviously a picture of an event is one thing, but what you do want, let's say there is a protest or demonstration, or let's say college Republicans are tabling in Wells Hall and they're getting harassed by, this Bernie bro or something. That videotape, beautiful, because there's much more, visual representation. So just remember that, and also when you're doing a visual thing, like that's a lot more obvious. That's a lot more, it's like, oh wow, they're probably recording. So that might take away again from your attempt to expose indoctrination on campus. And you want to become a contributor to help expose indoctrination, website, right there on the top left, I believe, is a Become a Contributor tab or Join the Team. Definitely, you can go through there. Obviously, you can reach out to any staff member, myself, or the other staff. We'd love to have more people, grow the team, grow the amount of exposing leftist bias. So tip 4, if you were accused, so the last thing you want to do is stop what you're doing, because if you're lawfully, recording, you're not breaking a rule, breaking a law, public university, it's not a non-private meeting, or it's an open lecture. Make sure to find out more information instead of trying to deny what you're doing, or definitely don't lie about it. But if you're caught in just, what do I do? You say, hey, what policy are you referring to? Could you, explain like what exactly am I doing that's wrong? And if you're sitting there and your phone's going away, it's recording, it's just sitting there, and you can get, reasoning for this. And if you're perfectly lawful to do it, that might be, an interesting case right there where they're trying to tell you why you can't record and you're lawfully. And if they can't set a policy, if they're tripping over themselves, you just try to find out more questions, try to find an answer, because honestly, like if you happen to be breaking a law that you don't know, or there's just some weird circumstance, the last thing you want to do is just surrender to it rather than knowing what it is. Last tip for, how to extract, leftist bias. So if you have it written down, if there's a commotion, ask for clarification. So like if your professors are, going off in class or whatever, and let's say, happens all the time, the student, drops a clicker on the ground or notebook or whatever, and it's just noisy, and you're like, oh man, I missed something, or just raise your hand, be like, hey professor, I forgot what you said there, like, what'd you mean by that? Just that way you still have it recorded, especially if it's something that was probably pretty good. Just a tip there. So the last section here, on promoting an open discussion, because that's what we want a university to be, open discussion. Not this, what's become of, where it's, oh, some opinions matter, some don't, there is no truth, pretty much what we report on all the time about what's going on at Michigan State and other places. So first, this is kind of similar to when I discussed, if you're accused, how to respond. But, if you're in a classroom, your professor's going and, they're allowing for open discussion, which I hope so, challenge them through questions. Don't just sit there and say, socialism sucks, MAGA. Because, well, both those messages, they're great. I love them. They're wonderful. Ask, say, sir, like, how can socialism be realized in America or attempted, given all its failures and given that you have to force people to do things, and how would you, make people, how would you incentivize or force these people? How would you make this farmer give up 80% of his crop? Or how would you, would you evict your neighbors because they didn't pay their fair share? like just ask them, like ask more questions on the, you know, around, and this leads to the next tip, which is blaming closes discussion and brings up defenses. So you don't want to just be out there saying, you know, Professor, you're a Marxist, you're wrong, and blah 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 blah. Questions specifically, and this is tip 2, is, you know, ask for explanation, like who, what, where, why, when. You know, just get all those details out there, because likely they don't know the whole story. You know, when they make a blanket claim of, you know, socialism hasn't been fully tried, we need it in America because, you know, there's just so many poor people and the rich are stealing. You know, ask them, how much are the rich stealing? What do you mean by rich? You know, how poor relative to, you know, America, the world? You know, just get more questions at them. Tip 3 to promote open discussion. So if there's, you know, leftist assignments, whether you're given it or it's in class, it's an assigned reading, and you're expecting, you know, come in the next day to share your paper with a small group, or, you know, the class is going to discuss the reading, especially if you're the humanities classes, which, you know, ISI, IHs, which lean left and tend to give leftists, you know, ideology through assignments. Study other things, you know, come in with, you know, let's say they want a paper by this guy and they want you to do this reading. Maybe bring in a reading on that same, you know, topic that's being discussed, but from a different perspective, you know, maybe conservative or a Christian perspective, something that's contrary, different, maybe more to your own or not to your own, and add that to the mix. What are they going to do? Get mad at you for learning more? And if they do, that's not good on them. It's a very easy way. You know, say you're in a small group and you're, I guess, at my freshman year, and you're talking about, you know, environmental policy and how, you know, how these Nordic countries are just so green, their recycling system is so much better than America, and, you know, all this stuff. Bring in a paper maybe from, you know, a conservative institute that just points out, you know, what advantages in, you know, Norway and Sweden do they have that make it much easier for them to have, you know, all these green initiatives, or in America, you know, given its vastness, its space, much more diversity, whether you're talking about, you know, economic levels, you know, racial, ethnicity, you know, maybe those concerns, how all that stuff might play into a much harder, you know, attempt to be so green as Norway, and bring that into the mix. Tip 4, so obviously some assignments you get, and there's plenty of students, I hear it all the time, I've gotten a few, and, you know, whether you want to, you know, challenge this leftist assignment and just go full on, you know, tear it to shreds and just tell your professor off, or not, obviously it's your liberty, but I would suggest, there are assignments where, you know, you don't want to die on the hill, but you do want to point out you climbed a hill. You want to point out that, hey, professor, this assignment, whether you write it, you know, in a short, you know, sub-paragraph, or you just talk to them, or you send an email saying, hey, you know, I wrote this assignment, you know, this wasn't, I didn't write it genuinely, you know, I took the talking points and I can regurgitate, I can, you know, stuff for paragraphs, I can, you know, you can write a 10-page paper, but I don't have to, you know, have much actual work or genuine thought into it. I'm just regurgitating what you want from this prompt. And then say, but, you know, personally, I think this was, you know, very biased. I think there are different perspectives that could have been brought in. I felt like my career would have been harmed. You know, so again, you don't have to die on the hill, but at least point out that, you know, you had to climb one, or there's a hill to climb. Tip 5. So last tip for opening discussion in class. Don't assign a person's position. Unless it's obviously, you know, you've had an argument with them and you're making just a deduction based on premises they've already solidified or said, or, you know, proven conditional. So, you know, instead of saying, you know, professor, you know, you believe that the 1% are stealing everything, you believe this, you're trying to box them in, which is not good, because if they haven't given you information to base any of that on, then you look like, you know, an idiot, you know, and you don't want to do that. So those are the 10 tips on how to expose your professor's indoctrination, which, you know, deal with how to extract information, to publicize it, and then Also, how to promote open discussion in the class. This has been Undeniable with Surrey Kelly with The Morning Watch. Subscribe to the Morning Watch website, and then also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to stay up to date on the latest indoctrination and leftist bias at Michigan State University. Thank you.